Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Event Manager Podcast by Skift Meetings, the podcast for curious event professionals embracing the future of business events. My name is Andrea Doyle, and I am the senior editor of Skift Meetings. And in this episode titled, Shining a Light on Everyone Under the Sun, I have the pleasure of speaking with Stacy Ritter, President and CEO of Visit Lauderdale. Our conversation was an important one as we discussed the Florida travel advisories and how they are impacting meetings and conventions coming to the state. We talked about whether companies should consider boycotting or not, how Visit Lauderdale's tagline, "Everyone under the sun celebrates all." We talk about the evolution of the area and how when in 1974, when Ritter arrived, it was a sleepy little beach town, but today is a vibrant community where more than 100 languages are spoken. We talk about breaking the glass ceiling and the convention center renovation and how that will be a game changer for the area. I hope you enjoy listening to this conversation, and I invite you to check out other episodes of the podcast, which you can find on our website or by subscribing through your favorite podcast service. Thank you. So Stacy, if you don't mind introducing yourself, that would be great.
Okay, my name is Stacy Ritter, and I am President and CEO of Visit Lauderdale, which is Broward County's destination management organization.
And can you explain how you got to be in this position?
Sure. Let's see. I was born a poor child, and I had been serving in public office for almost 20 years. I was a member of the Broward County Board of County Commissioners, and the CVB, the Convention and Visitors Bureau, what we now call Visit Lauderdale, is an agency of county government. And my predecessor had been talking about retiring for a really long time. She just kept talking about it. And one day, my husband, who is my biggest supporter and my best friend, said to me, "You know what? You can do that. You've been doing cocktail parties for 20 years as an elected official. What is it? It's just one big cocktail party, right?" And I said, "I can do cocktail parties. I've been doing cocktail parties for almost 20 years. So she finally formally announced her retirement, and we put together what very much looked like a political campaign, where I had supporters who would contact the county administrator who made the appointment, would make the appointment, and we figured out who the naysayers would be and tried to mute their naysaying voices, and it worked out. And so here I am 7 years later, working for tourism in Broward County.
Well, that is amazing. There's not everyone understands what a destination management organization does. I was wondering how you explain to friends and family what you do.
Yeah, well, clearly my husband didn't know what it was, because it is not one big cocktail party, I can tell you that. The job is to, and I think there are a lot of people who don't know what CVBs do, or why we do what we do. So the job is the 40 some odd of us who work at Visit Lauderdale. Our job is to market and promote the destination, because tourism is Broward County's biggest industry. And without tourists, we don't have an economy here in Broward County. So the job is for us, travel the world, because we're an international destination, and talk about the place that I've called home since 1974, and how it's evolved into this really beautiful, diverse, and inclusive, welcoming destination. But that's the job, to go talk to tour operators and travel agents and consumers and business people and business publications and leisure publications, to bring in influencers and people in tourism, both on the leisure side and the business side, and show them all we have to offer so that they will bring their business, whether it's conferences or for travel agents, leisure travelers, to Broward County so that people stay employed.
Can you just touch upon the convention space you have?
Well, we are, the Broward County Convention Center is currently undergoing renovation and reconstruction. We're building, for the first time ever, an attached hotel, an 801 room Omni hotel, which will open in late of 2025. We've completed our west expansion, which has 350,000 square feet of exhibit space. And we're also doing an east expansion, which will be directly on the intercoastal waterway. So you'll have beautiful views of the waterway and the housing development right across from the convention center, which is really beautiful multi-million-dollar houses. And it will also include a 60,000 square foot ballroom, which will be the biggest ballroom in the Southeast. And it'll all come online by end of 25. It also includes, for the first time for us, a CVB office building. We will be at the convention center, which we're all very excited about. And we're very much looking forward to cutting that ribbon. It's been a long time in the making. Broward County's tried 4 times to build a hotel, and the 4th time is the charm. And to see it come out of the ground is pretty amazing, especially, as I said, I've lived here for so long and watched the county try to build this hotel, that the fact that it's going to be happening under me is really, really, really exciting. It'll be like my swan song.
And as
It'll be like my swan song.
Well, that's great. And as far as meetings and conventions are concerned, is this a game changer?
Yeah, 75% of Visit Lauderdale's business is leisure, but that 25% that's business is really key to keeping the hotel industry afloat. And I've learned this since I got here, because as I said, I was not in tourism before I got here. So that 25% is put on the books years in advance. People are booking 28, 29, 30 now for groups and conventions, and so hotels can bank that. And it's basically their core business, and which is what they're looking for. The leisure stuff also has become very last minute since the pandemic. People aren't booking vacations 6 months in advance. They're booking them 2 weeks or on Thursday to leave for a Friday for a long weekend. So that's really core business, and we'll be able to attract larger conferences and larger groups because of the enhanced space and because of the hotel. We've lost groups that will not go any place that does not have an attached hotel, which honestly I understand, because when I go to conferences, I like to stay at the attached hotel too. So it is definitely going to allow us to seek business that we had not been able to seek before, to bring back business which left because we didn't have the hotel.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, talking about meeting business in Florida, I recently wrote a story entitled "New Florida Laws Are Bad for Meetings Business." And, the NAACP is the latest group to issue a formal Florida travel advisory in response to Governor DeSantis's bill. The LGBTQ plus and the Latino communities have done the same. And, there's talk that meetings and events are canceling. And, there's some that have the contracts in place and have to bring the groups now, but they will not consider it for a few years out. I was wondering how this is impacting the greater Fort Lauderdale area.
Well, as of this recording, we've in the past 2 weeks, we've lost 7 groups that have chosen not to come here, specifically because of the policy decisions that are being made in Tallahassee. Those are the ones that have told us the specific reasons why. I've no doubt that there are others that don't want to say that, but won't be coming here. And we also know from talking to meeting and event planners that there are many clients that don't even want RFPs sent to Florida at all. So I can tell you what we've lost, those who have reached out to us and we were working with and that have decided to cancel for that reason. But I don't even know what we're not able to go for, because we're not even getting an RFP dropped in our lap. So it is, I think the problem is that policymakers don't see that impact, because Florida is experiencing record tourism. And because it's experiencing record tourism, nobody who makes these decisions is looking up and saying, oh, hey, you know what, this might have a negative effect at some point. And then there are those who call what the NAACP and Equality Florida have done as political stunts. So when you don't take seriously what's going on here, and we take at Visit Lauderdale what is going on in the state very seriously, then you're not going to see a potential negative impact. And when I say we take it seriously, because we are a destination of 2 million people live in Broward County. We're 170 nations represented by our residents speaking 147 languages. You can't get more diverse. I read a statistic recently that said we're more diverse than the island of Manhattan. So when you are that, then the fact that there are people who are pushing back on being diverse and inclusive makes us double down on it even more. So we continue to push that message of diversity and inclusion. We are welcoming, but more importantly, or maybe equally importantly, when you don't come here because of politics or because of policy, you're actually hurting those people who share your values. You know, when you're and we respect both organizations, Equality Florida and the NAACP. And we also respect the Human Rights Campaign, which put out a warning. But when you are doing that, you are hurting small businesses, minority and women-owned businesses, gay-owned businesses who rely on tourism to keep their businesses afloat. And so I would want to go to a place where people share my values. And while that may not be all of Florida, that is definitely Broward County.
So you say by boycotting, you hurt small businesses. What do you recommend groups that have views that are different than these views that are in DeSantis's bills do?
Well, call us, contact Visit Lauderdale, and we can direct you to those places where, tell us what your client's values are, what your values are, which I'm pretty sure we know if you're an ally or a member of those organizations, and we can direct you to the places where your dollars are actually going to help. Now, having said that, I understand, although I don't agree with people who don't want to come here and don't want to send their sales tax dollars to Tallahassee. I get it. But when you do that, again, what you are doing is you are hurting those gay and women and minority-owned businesses which share your values and which embrace what you stand for. And that's Broward County. Is it all of Florida? No, it is not. But it is us. And that's what we would encourage and that's what we're telling all of these meeting planners and event planners. Look, we get it. We understand the pressures you might be having to not come here, but here's why you should come here. Here's what we stand for. And I'll bet you what we stand for is what you stand for.
And has there been any instances where you've spoken to a meeting or event planner and directed them to go talk to people in government positions about what's going on, or to do some sort of corporate social responsibility that helps with their beliefs?
Well, we're a government agency, and government can actually be constrained when it comes to the First Amendment. Government can't constrain private businesses, but government can constrain itself. And so I refrain from doing that. I will talk to my Board of County Commissioners. I will share with my Board of County Commissioners and my boss, the county administrator, the business that we've lost, the things I'm hearing, the emails I get regularly from people outside of Florida who say they're never coming here and they love Fort Lauderdale, but they're never coming here. Mm-hmm. But the county has lobbyists, and their job is to go to Tallahassee and send the message, the Broward County message. It's not successful. And that's politics. Some you win, some you lose some. But we are very much an island in a sea. We're very much a blue island in a sea of red. But we aren't going to change simply because the politics or the policies are forcing us to do so. We are who we are, and that's what makes us authentic. We aren't going to change, and we may get punished as a result. But that doesn't mean that you don't stand up for your values. I have to wake up every morning and look at myself in the mirror. And the only way I can do that is to stay true to the values that I bring to the table and that my destination brings.
Can you tell me about your Everyone Under the Sun campaign?
Yeah, well, when I got here, the Greater Fort Lauderdale Convention Visitors Bureau was using the tagline "Hello Sunny" and had been for a very long time. And the destination has really evolved into something that's very cosmopolitan, and we have a leisure product that we didn't have 10 years ago. And I very much wanted to rebrand to reflect the destination, because we think that our greatest asset are the residents who live here. Our greatest stakeholders are our residents. They have to buy into tourism. If they don't buy into tourism, if they're not hospitable, if they're not friendly, then tourists won't come back. So we thought, okay, what are we? Who are we? Well, as I said before, 170 nations are represented in the 2 million people who live here. Everyone under the sun lives here. Not only does everyone under the sun live here, but we are an international destination. Everyone under the sun visits us. So the Everyone Under the Sun tagline speaks to not only the people who live here, but the people who come to visit here. The Visit Lauderdale change was because Greater Fort Lauderdale Convention and Visitors Bureau is a mouthful. It's just easier to say Visit Lauderdale, but we really wanted to focus on the Everyone Under the Sun tagline and the Everyone Under the Sun brand and use it wherever we go and wherever we speak, because it was critically important when we did it 2 years ago. It's even more important today for people to know that when we say everyone under the sun is welcome here, we mean everyone under the sun is welcome here.
How important is it to tell the authentic story of a destination?
I think that's what people want these days, but I also think that people are tired of hearing that you're authentic, you know? Right. So instead of talking about how authentic we are, we just tell the story through the rebranding, through the stories we tell of the people who live here, what they look like, what they do for a living, how they welcome visitors, where they came from. We are a majority minority county. Many of our residents are immigrants. How they came here, what their travel to this country is, how this country, if it has provided them opportunities they didn't have in other places. Many of them are either directly or indirectly employed in tourism. So it transfers to a tourism related story. Here's why I came to this country. Here's how I got to tourism. Here's how I treat visitors when they come, because they are also visitors in the respect that they were not born here. They were not necessarily raised here, but they've come here to enjoy a new life and how that evolves into the experience of the visitor. That we think is our greatest story. Is when I got to Broward County in 1974, it was very white, very straight, very conservative, very male-centered, and it has become a completely different, beautifully woven tapestry. That's what we do best, is tell those stories, and you don't have to say they're authentic, because the authenticity just either bounces off the page or comes through the video screen. We talk to people who love this place as I love this place, and you can hear it and feel it in their voices and in the smiles that they bring. And
that authenticity, I guess, translates to successful meetings and conventions.
Well, we have, knock wood, been successful, and we do believe that we will be successful with the new convention center, the expanded convention center and the hotel. But we also know that there are some storm clouds out there that we are going to have to figure out how to navigate through or dissipate somehow or push back. We recognize that. And so wherever we go and whenever this question arises, because Florida has become a very critical part of the conversation, we just say what we've always been. We were the first destination to have an LGBT plus dedicated department back in the 90s. We aren't doing anything different that we've been doing for 30 years. It's just that people are paying more attention to it now because Florida has become so, is consuming the oxygen as it relates to the conversation about diversity and inclusion. And so people are paying more attention. We're delighted they're paying attention to us because this is who we are. So we think that we can navigate it, but we also think it's going to be a little rocky between now and whenever the road smooths out.
How important is diversity and inclusion when it comes to meetings and conferences?
Well, we think it's important in everything that we do. Today's my birthday and I'm 63. And
happy birthday.
Because, everybody, gee, that's joyous. But when I think of myself as a young woman or teenager, all the movies were all white people. Mm-hmm. People of color had minor roles, and they were always relegated to certain characters. It never occurred to me when I was 15 and 16 that it was important for people to see their reflection in TV and movies and magazines and newspapers. And we have evolved into that. So now we see how important it is for people to see themselves. So it's critically important, but it's not done in a vacuum. Oh, I've checked this box. I've checked this box. I've checked this box. I think it has to evolve into something that is original. And I think that's why we tell the story so greatly, is because we have evolved into something original. This came, and again, I don't like to use the word organic either, but I can't think of anything else. At my advanced age, words come very, very hard for me. it happened organically. Nobody said 50 years ago, Broward County should change into something that's more diverse. It just happened. And it happened because we've always been a welcoming community that brought people in who might not have felt they belong where they were, but do belong here. So it is critically diverse. It's critically diverse in the workplace. It's critically diverse in entertainment, and it is critically diverse in tourism.
Okay. So you touched upon the fact that you are an attorney. Can you tell us a little bit about your road to becoming an attorney and your career in politics?
Don't hold that against me. I like to say at one point in my life, I was an attorney and a politician. And if I'd been a used car salesman, I would have had the bottom three covered. So I'd always wanted to be a lawyer. My mom was a legal secretary. And I remember, like, on teacher work days, when she couldn't find someone to watch me, I would go to work with her and I'd see all those law books and they looked so special and the people seemed so intelligent. And so I think I was 11 when I decided I wanted to be a lawyer. And I realized it when I was playing Barbies with some of my girlfriends, and their Barbies were flight attendants and my Barbie was the lawyer for the flight attendants. So this is what I want to do. And so I was fortunate enough to be admitted to law school, and didn't really love law school, but it was really hard and wasn't really crazy about the reading. Oh my God, I remember my first day of law school, they give you assignments before school starts. And so I had like 100 pages of reading the first day. I'm like, oh God, 100, I didn't read 100 pages of reading in a month in college. So and I graduated, I graduated, I passed the bar, and LA Law was the number one show on TV. And I thought, I'm going to get a corner office on Biscayne Bay, overlooking the bay, and it's going to be wonderful. And they're going to bring me bagels and donuts at our morning meetings, and people are going to say, look at Stacy, she's incredible. And none of that happened. I ended up in a law library, a dank, dark law library, researching for a year. Like, this is terrible. Where's my corner office? Where are my donuts and bagels? And don't they realize how amazing I am? What's wrong with these people? And so I decided to get married and have babies. And I dabbled in law till about 1996 when I evolved into a real estate lawyer because I could manage my own calendar, because back then most of the judges were men and most of the bailiffs were men, and they didn't really care that you had a sick kid and you couldn't be in court that day. I hope it's changed. I really hope it's changed. There are certainly more women on the bench now, and they experience the same childcare issues that everyone, other women do. But so I joined a couple of activist organizations. National Council of Jewish Women was my preferred organization, and we would go to Tallahassee every year and lobby on social issues. And then again, I thought, look how important I am. I'm speaking about abortion and about school prayer. And in April of 1996, my state rep decided to retire out of the blue. And Steve Geller, who's now a county commissioner, who was in the legislature at the time, said, Stacy, you should do this. We had just met like 3 minutes before. You have young children. You can speak to that. You're Jewish. It's a very Jewish district. You're socially liberal. That's really the district. You should do this. And I should do it. And so I said, what the hell? And I threw my hat in the ring, and I had no experience. I'd never run a campaign. I'd worked on a couple, but I cobbled together. Well, cobbled isn't the right word. I worked very hard to get a professional campaign staff. Some of it fell in my lap because they didn't like my opponent, who was a two-time school board member. She'd won countywide twice, and I beat her, and I won.
Wow.
And nobody was more shocked than me, because I wasn't supposed. I mean, the newspapers didn't endorse me, and neither the Herald nor the Sun Sentinel endorsed me. And they said, "Oh, she's nice, and she's probably got, she's probably going to go someplace at some point, but it ain't going to be this time." Well, they were wrong. But I worked hard. I knocked on doors for 8 weeks, every day, 8 hours a day, rain or shine. And the summers in South Florida are brutal. But I worked my ass off, and because I really, really wanted it. And I thought I could really, really do it. And the voters responded. was born, I guess. I mean, a career was born, and I loved being an elected official. I loved the things that we could do. But after nearly 20 years, I felt that it was time to move on to something else, which I don't think enough elected officials do. I think they hang on until the bitter end, and I think that, and many of them don't think that there's life after politics, but I can tell you that there is life after politics, and it can actually be a better one.
Did you go right from there to the Convention and Visitors Bureau, or was there an in-between?
I was on the Board of County Commissioners. I was in the middle of my second term.
Okay.
Yeah, 3 here. And so I had, in 2006, I was trying to figure out whether to run for a state Senate seat or the county commission seat. Both were open seats. And I called a dear friend of mine, and he said to me, Stacy, you got to do the county commission, and you're going to love it for about 6 years, and then you're going to hate it. And it was 6 years. And I can't do this for much longer. I can't do this for much longer, which is right when around the time my husband told me that I was great at cocktail parties. So almost 4 years later, the job, was it more than that? No, was it? Maybe I'm wrong. So I took the job. So yeah, it was 10 years on the Board of County Commissioners, the job was offered to me. And so I resigned in the middle of my term and as a county commissioner and took this job.
What are you most proud of as president and CEO of the Greater Fort Lauderdale Convention and Visitors Bureau?
There's the administrative story, and I never really considered myself an administrator, but I've become one because we are a county agency, and there's a lot of paperwork when you work for a government agency. So getting the correct policies and procedures to ensure that when we spend money, it is spent wisely. That's the boring answer, but it's also a really important answer. But that has happened, and it has taken many, many years to do that, so that nobody has to worry that the money is being spent irresponsibly or without fiscal constraint. But the really fun part has been the rebranding and being able to talk about this place that I have called home for so many, gosh, it's almost 50 years. Next year will be 50 years that I've lived here, and to be able to talk about the place that I love and tell the story about how it's changed. I went from, the height of spring break, which was my era, of belly flop contests and wet t-shirt contests, although I was never in one because I would never have won one. But and Nick beers and the button and the elbow room and puking on the beach and puking in what was then a Holiday Inn, what is now something else, and not remembering and being 10 in a hotel room and trashing the place because we were kids. Going from telling that story to today having dinner at a Four Seasons, which used to be a place where I, probably crammed in with 9 other friends, to be able and to tell everything that occurred during that time frame is the best thing I think I do here. And there are few people who have lived here this long that can talk about how it has changed. If you move here today, you would never, ever believe that back in the 70s, Broward County schools had just been desegregated, and everybody on the east side was white, or if they were a person of color, they were working for white people. To what we've become today, I think it's such an amazing story, and it's almost difficult to find anywhere else. So that's the best part.
Wow. That's wonderful. And you know what? I really respect you being so honest about the fact that, partying, spring break.
Thank God there were no cell phone cameras back then. There is not a single shred of evidence to suggest that any of that actually happened. So thankfully.
Is there anyone who mentored you early in your career or helped you become the type of leader you are today?
I had lots of mentors. Sadly, they're male, but I don't think women can achieve success without support from both gender or any gender, all genders. I have to say that one of my first was nobody mentored me in when I was in law school or a lawyer, mostly I think because I just was clearly not interested in practicing law, or achieving success. But Lawton Chiles, who was the governor when I got elected in 1996, who only had a couple years left to live, not that any of us knew that, taught me what it meant to be a reasonable and responsible legislator. And then there was Steve Geller, who I had mentioned earlier, who encouraged me to run for the first time and likes to tell that story to everybody and anybody. I made her. This is who I made. And then I have to say that my current husband, because the man I'm married to today is not the man I was married to when I ran and won in 1996, but we met on the campaign trail. He actually ran my campaign in 1996, saw something in me that I never saw, that I'm not even sure I see today. And it's because of his support and love and guidance that that whatever I've achieved was achievable. He didn't do it for me, but he was the first person who actually looked at Stacy Ritter and said, "I believe in you."
Wow.
And to this day, almost 30 years later, he still says that to me on a regular basis, especially at low points when I'm not sure that I believe in myself. And there are plenty of those days. He's my rock, and not everybody needs a husband to do that, but find somebody who believes in you, and you can achieve whatever it is you set out to achieve.
Okay, that is absolutely beautiful.
Thank you. He'll never believe I said that, because I rarely say that to his face. You don't want him to get too big a head, but he is an amazing man, and he's a man who understands me, which is really hard to find because I am not easy.
So you had mentioned that most of your mentors were male. I'm interested in finding out if you feel women are breaking the glass ceiling, and if it's important to you to be a mentor to all.
I think women are breaking the glass ceiling. I think we see that, whether it's the first woman vice president or the first woman Supreme Court justice with Sandra Day O'Connor back in the day, or whatever it is. But it doesn't have to be. But not every woman has to say, I want to be the one to break the glass ceiling. A woman can be whatever she wants to be. And if that's a mom who stays at home and raises your kids, that's great. And if it's a mom who works also, that's great. And if it's someone who chooses not to have kids, and that's great too. I mean, we should all be able to free to do what we wanted to do. And my generation was very judgmental about women who didn't want to have children. I personally, whatever works for you. But I think that because my generation was mentored by men, that we boomers, female boomers, certainly the ones I know, and this holds for me, we are very much interested in making sure that the next generation of women and the one after that it doesn't take them as long to get wherever it is they want to go. Women don't become CEOs until they're in their 50s. Women don't apply for jobs where they don't feel qualified. If there are 10 criteria, a woman will not apply for a job unless she feels that she checks 7 of those boxes. A man will do it if he thinks he checks 3. If women are, if we're so, phrase not the right word, but reluctant to say that we're smart, that we are successful. I have a hard time saying it. But a man in my position would be off telling everybody how great he was. We have to be better at self-promotion. And that's my generation's responsibility, to teach those women who are in their 40s and 50s and 40s and 30s now that it's okay to brag. And it's not bragging if it's true. And this is me. I don't want to sound immodest, but, well, it's not immodest necessarily to say, you know what? I look at my resume, and if I were looking at someone else, I'd be like, wow. But I look at myself and I see what I haven't yet done, not what I have. That's my generation's job, to change the mindset for younger women so that they don't feel that way. So that, yes, mentoring is extraordinarily important for my generation to make sure that those women achieve whatever it is they want to achieve when they're in their 40s. not waiting till their 50s or 60s.
Okay. And what attributes and or qualities have you developed that have helped you become successful?
I have a very foul mouth. That, in fact, I'm surprised I haven't let one fly yet. Oh gosh, that's a tough question because I'm not sure that I have any of those, but I think people would think I do. But commitment, it's I think very important to be committed. This job for me, I had a lot of people who said we're not putting a politician in that job. The newspapers wrote 2 opinions of stories about me saying anybody but Stacy Ritter for the CVB. Everybody but Stacy Ritter for the CVB.
Oh my gosh.
And if people don't think that I went home and cried about that, yeah, I did. It out of frustration. But commitment, dedication, putting your head down, not letting those who want to throw those darts at you and shoot those arrows, not letting them win is probably what has motivated me more than anything. The more I get of no, you can't, the more I want to do it. And I think that's a real strength for leaders. I also think you need to be a good listener. You need to let people know that you hear them. My friend Lisa Lutoft-Perlow, who's the vice chair of external affairs at Celebrity Cruises, says that being a leader is very much like the Wizard of Oz. I think this is so brilliant. The Scarecrow needed brains, the Tin Man wanted a heart, and the Cowardly Lion wanted courage. And brains, heart, and courage are the 3 things you need to be a leader.
Wow.
And I think that if I'm being immodest, I have those 3 attributes, and they've clearly done me well.
Wow.
I think.
That's awesome. What is the one thing people would be surprised to learn about you?
Oh gosh, what would be the one thing people would be surprised to learn about me? I feel like I'm such an open book that I'm not sure that anybody would be surprised about anything about me. But I do like to listen to podcasts and paint at the same time. And I think that people would be like, wait, she paints? So I think that might be, everybody knows I love shoes and everybody knows I love to shop. And everybody knows I like to do karaoke and pretend that I'm Madonna from 1982. But they don't know that I like to paint.
And tell me about, you have an Oscar on your desk?
It's an Emmy.
And what was that for?
We did a video called Greater Together back in 2017, right after Donald Trump got elected president. And we were all at the World Travel Market in London in November of 16, the night of the election. And the next day, lots of people walked around shell-shocked, and a lot of the international crew would come up to us and say, WTF, what are you people doing? And as the conversation went to immigrants were bad and all of that negative talk, we felt that we needed to start pushing back. We would never have the bully pulpit of the White House, but whatever we did have, we were going to use. We put together this video called Greater Together, which showed the diversity of the destination, and we won an Emmy for it. Yay.
Oh, that's amazing. So in wrapping up, what do you feel the future holds for your organization and the meetings and conventions industry as a whole?
I think meetings have come back, not to the levels of pre-pandemic, but but the tourism industry has to stop marking 19 as the benchmark for everything, because 4 years later, things have changed drastically. People travel differently. People think differently. I remember going to China in 2019, in September 2019, and they're all wearing masks. And I'm like, oh, what are they wearing masks for? How silly. And, and then 6 months later, we were all wearing masks. So people have evolved in their thinking. So it's come back, and I think it will get better for us and for everyone else. People want to travel. People want to go back to conferences. I think 2 years ago, none of us thought people were going to want to go to conferences, but they do. They want to meet in person again. There's a connection you get in person that you just cannot get electronically. So I think it's very bright. But today I would say it's a little dimmer than it was maybe 6 months ago, based on some of the policy changes. But pendulums swing, and I would encourage people who think they know Florida to take a second look and not give up on us. Florida is 20 million people. We are not monolithic. We do not think as one. We are not the Borg. We are all, whether you think left, right, or center, there's a lot of thought and a lot of conversations going on in Florida that would be encouraging to people who do not live here and only get Florida from, the little snippets they see from the news. So that's what I would say. Come here, show your commitment to our values. We will show you our commitment to yours, and they align. And check out the new convention center and the new hotel when it comes online, because the shiny new toy is Visit Lauderdale, and you're going to want to play.
So we always end our podcasts by asking, who should we have on our future podcast? Who would you recommend?
I love Chuck Davison at Visit SlowCal, which is San Luis Obispo. I think he is really interesting. Interesting is not the right word. Interesting sounds like he might be dull. He's not. I've learned a lot from him in tourism. He's been he's been a mentor to me in tourism. But the way he has moved the needle for SlowCal has been really impressive to watch. And so he is definitely one that I would bring on. I'd also, ask Jeff Freeman, who's the head of the U.S. Travel Association, to come on. New leadership, Roger Dow, who'd been there for many, many years. So Jeff's got some new ideas on where to take the U.S. Travel Association. I think he would be a good person to have on your podcast as well.
And you're part of that association, aren't you?
Yes, we are. We are Chairman Circle members of USTA. In fact, we are bidding for IPW for 2026, which would be a first for this destination. We've never had IPW here, so we're keeping our fingers crossed. They're coming in July for a site visit, so we're keeping our fingers crossed.
Great. Well, Stacy, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity.